So, I hate video games.
Oh, yeah. Let's get into it.
How many episodes in a row is the I Hate Video Game podcast been going on?
I think, how many episodes, GC?
We are
18?
We are on episode 18, so it's been 17 episodes. If you double that and add about 4 weeks due to delays that we had, it's been 38 weeks of hating video games.
Of hurting. No, I like the hurting video.
I like hurting video games
yeah.
as well.
Yeah,
video games don't have feelings.
Yeah, we're critiquing games and hurting everyone else that likes them.
Unfortunately, some people think video games have feelings.
Yes.
Does a video game have a soul?
No.
Please answer in the comments below.
I mean, unless you believe everything has a soul, but like no. The answer's no.
I don't know. Like, I think some things have the capacity to have a soul.
I don't believe digital objects have a soul. That's why corporations have leaned in so heavily into them.
My toaster oven has a soul.
Tinfoil.
Have you seen the Brave Little Toaster?
No, my blankets have souls.
Okay, what you're talking about is the Brave Little Toaster. That is literally what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, what you're talking about is the smell your blankets exude. That's not their soul. That's BO. Go wash your blankets.
I'm talking about my washed blankets. My bed has a soul. It's comfy and it makes me feel good when I go to bed.
Oh yeah, beds are alive. There's no way.
My Blu-ray player has a soul. It shows me things I enjoy.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of Burnout Culture. It's been a while since we've done a bit like that. My name is Kazuma. I'm one of 3 fantastic hosts.
I'm GC. I am 2 of 3 fantastic hosts.
Hey, everyone. Cullen here. We like to have fun on the show, but truth be told, there's not a lot of fun going on in the world right now. There's a serious problem I need to address.
Yeah.
And that's podcast editors keeping in the parts of your funny bit where you explain the joke edit for them to include so you look like an idiot.
It's so funny.
We can educate the world on this life-threatening issue.
So what kind of music do you want me to put in as you're talking?
This message was sponsored by the GC's a Smelly Butt Poopy Sticky Stupid Boy Coalition.
Oh my god. Ugh. Oh my god, just put in some like smooth elevator music or something behind Cullen.
I got it.
Don't, because he's just going to include that bit and it's going to ruin the joke. Don't tell him anything.
do it, GC, ruin the joke.
Stop ruining jokes.
Oh man, so it's been a fucking doozy. You know, it's been a real week. Yeah, you know, someone got his car fixed.
Oh God, yeah, let's fucking go into that. Literally, like the energy going into this podcast, which I deem the Code Geass, is that I had to go take my car in to do inspection and to just make sure everything's good before the big MagFest trip, because I always drive up there to, for that. I don't take like a plane or a train or anything. And my check engine light was going on. Basically, at the end of the day, I'm walking home with like an $800 fucking bill. Because, that's just what happens when you take your car into the shop. So, things are going great.
Yeah.
All right.
I've been watching a lot of stuff to get my mind off of the bullshit.
I forgot that MagFest was coming up.
Yeah. Are you going or are you deciding not to?
I don't have anybody to stay with. I have the hotel room, but I don't know anybody who's going to want to stay in a remote. It's not remote. It's across the bridge, but
bro, you're single. It's the perfect bachelor pad.
Yeah, I'm not really planning on picking anyone up at MagFest.
Yeah, please don't do that.
You're a bit too
respectful,
small and weak to pick anyone up.
No.
Okay.
I don't think you could carry anyone.
Second of all, I'm not going to pick anyone up at MagFest because they might seem chill. And then it's like, what do you think about Attack on Titan? And then I have to sit there and they're in my room and then I might die. So no.
Well, no, but what if that's a test? And you're like, I don't like it. And there's like, oh, take me now.
I just think hooking up with people at conventions is always bad.
Oh, I've seen a lot of horror stories and I've heard a lot of horror stories. So it's like, it's not worth it.
Do you want a horror story?
Oh.
No.
Okay. Well, we got mixed reception on that. So we're not getting a horror story.
All
anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, audience.
To make it clear, I'm not telling people to go fucking try to pick people up at conventions.
No,
you
yeah,
fuckers
pick people
throwing
up at
me under the
conventions.
bus.
Some of our best lessons are learned the hard way. Go pick somebody up at a convention. Let me know how it goes.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do
do
it.
not do that. See,
Don't.
now GC's the bad guy.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No.
No.
GC,
GC, if you had
You have a
hair, I would be
platform.
dragging you by your hair out of the convention.
GC, I'm not allowed to talk about the status of your hair.
Oh yeah, you're
End of
trying
discussion.
to go on a cleanse or whatever.
Mhm.
What is it? Was it no bald November or something?
No bald jokes for a week. November, Cullen can't fucking last that long.
I could well, okay, we're halfway through November,
Yeah,
but
it's too
you know.
late.
I mean, I lasted at least a couple days.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I did. I made it to the end of the week. And then I failed.
That's true. You're right. I will say, while everybody hated video games this week, I quite enjoyed video games this week. I had a pretty good video game experience in the last 2 weeks. Yeah,
You liked Metaphor, right?
I really did enjoy Metaphor. I quite liked it. I might do a
did you
new
beat
game
it?
plus. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
it's done. It's beaten.
I exist as the only one here now. The Atlas boy who has not finished Metaphor, and it eats away at me every day.
See, I'll let GC talk about it because my feelings on it are pretty lukewarm. I think it's gonna be like, I think my issue with Metaphor is the thing that the audience is gonna take away from that like aren't people that listen to this podcast, and it's their politics will begin and end with the message the game gives them, and they'll go, wow, that was really progressive. I feel the same, and then not do actually anything about it or reflect on what they've learned at all. And it's just what is it? What's the guy's name? GC?
Diogenes?
The guy, it's the Diogenes in me, you know?
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
like the complete lack of faith in the human being.
The fact
Yes.
that someone could like leave that game and not take away, it's like, wow, I really want to fuck a blue-haired twink is just so sad and says a lot about our society.
Yeah,
Yeah, it sure does.
it's true.
It's
DMMD's
up.
about to come back.
But yeah, Metaphor, really liked it. Really liked what it had going on. All I really want to say, like all I really want to focus on, because I don't want to talk about it too much, is that it was really nice to finally play a game that didn't feel like it was like pandering to me in the way of like, I run into this problem with a lot of video games where they have a great message, but they don't have any constructive criticism. They don't have any constructive criticism about the message. They don't have any constructive criticism about the ideology. They don't have any constructive criticism about what they're saying, or like they don't discuss like the actual brass tacks of like, okay, but like you have to do something, right? Like we can't just, a lot of games are like, it's a good thing that you think the way that what we're saying is good. Pat yourself on the back. Go have a great day. And it's not like, no, you have to do something. And Metaphor, for all of its flaws, because it does have some flaws in certain ways that it handles certain topics, it does actually have a very comprehensive breakdown and a very comprehensive exploration of its messaging. It's about classism and racism, making change and like moving towards progress, and talking about how progress is slow, but just because progress is slow doesn't mean that you can't do anything about it. It doesn't mean that, you know, progress will happen on its own. And that's really the core message of Metaphor, among other things, but that's like the one that stood out the most to me. I'm really happy that it did not reduce its perspective into a moderate / centrist apologist view.
Persona 5.
Yeah, it is very clear about where it stands. It does not make concessions to people and perspectives that shouldn't be made concessions to, like diametrically opposed ideals. And I quite liked it. It lost me. It almost lost me at the very end. A character says a thing and like a thing happens and I rolled my eyes and I literally threw myself back in my chair and I stared up at the sky and I went, no. And then it undid that. And it sort of did like a fake out. And I was like, oh, thank God. And then we were back on and it was fine. It did not do the thing that I hate about the premise of Metaphor. Some of the world building of Metaphor is something I've seen a lot in other video games as well. And I'm kind of sick of that premise. This is more of like a world building thing. They do it. They do not focus on it a lot. It is not like the focus of what they're talking about necessarily. They kind of talk about it, but it's more like in service to the message, and it's not like obsessed or masturbatory about the fact that it's got that in its world building. And a lot of times when games or world writers include that in their setting, they're like obsessed with the fact that they did it and they want to be praised for having done it.
You can say Yakuza.
No. This
okay.
is a different thing. If you've played Tokiden 2, you'll know what I'm talking about. That's like the only example I have right now off the top of my head. But yeah, really good game. Gameplay's great. That game is fun from beginning to end. I really liked that even though I basically did everything before the final boss was still challenging.
Good.
The game also does a thing where these are like very minor gameplay spoilers at the end. The game basically, without telling you, but making it really obvious, gives you essentially several options for how difficult you want your final boss to be.
Interesting. How would you say the final boss's difficulty is compared to like Persona 5 Royals?
It's easier than Royals.
Okay, interesting.
Well,
I guess that's not the worst, because I actually really like Persona 5 Royals final boss.
Yeah.
It's like kind of the gold standard of like Atlas final bosses to me, as from what I've played of their games, which is a lot of them up until like Metaphor.
It is easier than Persona 5 Royals boss, but that is because by the end of the game, you are doing some insane shit. The end game of Metaphor is, so early game Metaphor, you're kind of just using your limited range of archetypes that you have, right? Mid game, you're sort of like expanding and you're working with like the skill inheritance system that's in the game. By end game, you are almost exclusively trying to eke out as many synthesis moves as possible. And if you weren't doing that, you would not be handling boss fights well. At least that was my progress with that game. Like I was, by the end of the game, I was doing a lot of cool synthesis moves with an archetype that I got. And then my whole thing was like managing my MP at the end, where I was running out of MP because I put on an item that like tripled the power of my synthesis moves, but also tripled the MP cost. So my whole thing was like trying to like, I was swapping party members in and out so I could like abuse their MP pools to be bosses. And it was great. I had a lot of fun. That game is great. And it lets you make the final encounter as hard as you want. And that's basically all I'll say. I won't say much more.
I love that. Oh, I did lie. I did play a video game this week.
Oh?
I played Warcraft 3 Reforged.
Oh
yeah.
GC watched me play a little bit, and we were having a good time laughing at, you know, in retrospect, we all should have known that Arthas was going to do what he did if you just listened to the way his voice actor delivers some of those lines. But you don't know what Warcraft 3 is, do you, Cullen?
I know that there is an old game called Warcraft 3, and it ended up making World of Warcraft. That's it.
So Warcraft 3 is one of the most influential video games to ever exist, because it also created Dota and League of Legends. Dota was a Warcraft 3 mod that eventually ended up also becoming League of Legends. It's basically, I would consider also one of the most influential video game stories of its time. Pretty uncomplicated. It's about a prince who thinks he's doing the right thing, isn't doing the right thing. Everyone tells him to stop, and then he doubles down on it and then ruins everything for everybody ever. He's sort of the catalyst.
It's not that you're wrong. It's not that you're wrong.
Yeah.
But there's such a strong bias here.
What? No, he did do the worst thing ever. Like, okay, I'll just say it. He genocided a bunch of people. I'm trying to like dance around it because I mean, like, it's super old or whatever, but like, I'm not here to fucking yap Cullen's ear off for 30 minutes being like, and then his horse died and it changed the trajectory of his life forever after he broke up with his girlfriend. And then he did a bunch of genocide, and then he did more genocide, and everyone was like, stop it. And he said no, and he continued to do it. But it's I mean, GC, why don't you give a better explanation of the story of Warcraft 3?
Okay.
Also, Thrall is there. It doesn't really matter.
So Warcraft 3 is basically there's a plague coming to the Eastern Kingdoms. That's where the humans live and where some of the orcs live at the moment. And a guy shows up and he gives Thrall a vision. And he's like, Thrall, listen, you got to take your dudes and you got to go to Kalimdor. And Thrall's like, what the fuck is that? He goes, it's a continent on the west side of the world. And Thrall's like, what? And he's like, yeah, dude. And then the same guy goes to the humans and he's like, listen, the plague is coming. You got to take your people to Kalimdor. And the king goes, no. And he goes, fuck you. I'll find someone who'll listen to me. And then he goes to Jaina Proudmoore and Jaina Proudmoore's boss. And he's like, listen, you got to take people to Kalimdor to save them. And that guy goes, no. And he's like, what is wrong with you people? And then he leaves. Meanwhile, Arthas Menethil is a cool guy with long blonde hair. He's having the time of his life. He broke up with his girlfriend, crashed his car horse, and then basically went on to become really successful in his job. Little does anyone know, Arthas Menethil is secretly Patrick Bateman. And he's really obsessed with the light and being really good about being a good guy, to the point where he's like, you know what? I'm pretty sure that bloodthirst and vengeance is like what the light wants me to do. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm really justified in everything I do because I'm a paladin, and paladins
and the prince.
And also I'm the prince, so I can do whatever I want. So he gets to a city and everybody at the city ate a bunch of poison grain. And he's like, well, it's too late for these people. We got to kill them. Obviously, he's never heard of, throwing up or like antidotes or anything like that.
So let's mention that the grain will turn people into zombies.
Okay,
they're part of the
it's a detail that, like, I mean, they're gonna become zombies anyway. That's the point. The point of life is if you kill them, they will come back. Why kill them sooner? You're just gonna have a double zombie problem anyway. Then Arthas Menethil gets really upset that his uncle and his ex-girlfriend are like, that's really fucked up, Arthas. You shouldn't do that. And Arthas is like, fuck you guys. I'm going to go to the mountains and find a sword and join forces with an evil warlock, and our spirits are going to merge and I'm going to become the Lich King. And that's it. That's the story of Arthas Menethil. At some point, he
kills his father.
At some point, he kills his dad, succeeds him.
Kills his entire kingdom, revives them as undead thralls.
Yeah. And then, minor details. And then at some point, somebody takes his soul and like puts it inside of like a sword. And then that soul goes into like a guy, and the guy is like, man, this sucks. And then that's it. That's his story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Can you imagine breaking up with your girlfriend, getting in your car, playing like a here I go again on my own, and then you hit a fucking like barricade, and you fucking total your car, and you're like, oh, fuck.
I remember telling you that detail about the horse, and you just seemed so flabbergasted.
Yeah, I don't know why
the horse dying was like the moment he was like, my life is changed forever.
Yeah, like he's like that's his like breaking up with his girlfriend of I don't know how long, to the point that they were probably gonna get married. No, my horse died, and then like I can only imagine Jaina Proudmoore walking up to Arthas years later in Warcraft 3 and going, "Hey Arthas, like, do you remember the day our lives were changed entirely?" And Arthas going, "I'm not sure why my horse's death had such an effect on you, Jaina, but yes, I remember." And it's like, fuck.
Yeah, what a fucking character. The really big thing in that game was when he went back to his kingdom and killed his father. That cutscene was like, it was a pretty big deal back then. Blizzard's cinematics were like, they were basically fighting with Square Enix for dominance over who had the best in-game cinematics. And that cutscene was just really good. The "what are you doing, my son?" Succeeding you kills him, kills everyone.
Stab.
There's like some other like incremental details too, like Illidan Stormrage is there because he's always there. You can't escape Illidan Stormrage or the Skull of Gul'dan. everyone should stop touching that skull. But it's actually really fun. I played the Reforged version, which is kind of, I would say, very divisive, but they've added new features where you can basically just make the game look the way it used to.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Unfortunately, that new Arthas redesign was made specifically for me. So I didn't change that. I didn't go back to the old graphics. I kept it. Kept the new stuff. But overall, Warcraft 3 is still a really solid game and really fucking hard, actually. I was getting my ass beat later on. Very, very hard RTS game. But I like the leveling up elements. And that was the only game that I played. And it was fun. So maybe video games are not terrible, actually.
No. They can actually be quite good.
Yeah. They just have to be like 20 years old.
Yes, in fact. Or older.
Yeah?
Because the other game I'd say GC and I played, less GC, more me, was Dragon Quest III HD 2D.
Yay!
Your guys' stream was so fucking fun, by the way. I loved watching you guys stream that.
Thank you.
Also, thanks GC for making me old.
Well, what
well,
I, oh,
you
yeah,
are.
That's right. I made you an old man in my playthrough.
Yeah.
Like, more and more when we talk and I say anything like lingo-wise that's remotely modern and you don't get it, like, I'm starting to be like, oh, come on. Come on.
But you know
Come
it's
on.
real. You know that I just don't
I know it's
keep
real.
up with this.
I know it's real. But I'm like, I'm having that thing where it's like, where my grandpa as a kid was like, what's Pokemon? And I'm just like,
So what's the Rizzler?
me. Anyway, so Dragon Quest III HD 2D is a goddamn amazing remake. And it's so nice that for the most part, everything I'm seeing of people actually playing the game, not fucking dipshit culture war idiots who are like, I'm not buying that because it's just everyone's like, wow, this is awesome.
Well, isn't even the censorship or whatever that's in the game, like, you can't even see it.
No,
Like she looks naked.
well, like, just there is no, like, it was, and it ended up being one of the biggest fumbles of all time to release the character art for this, because none of the character art for any of the characters is in the fucking game. It's just all like the little 2D sprites. That's it.
Okay. Then why are people mad? Because they can't see her coochie? Is that it?
Did you really need to ask why people on the internet are mad? Because rent is due.
Sorry.
No,
sorry.
it's just,
Jesus,
it's
sorry.
always down to rent is due for somebody.
Yeah. So what are some quality of life improvements?
So it's like a lot of like little things that kind of just like add up to an overall more polished experience. Like things like being able to like restore all your HP and MP on level up. When you open your map, you can instantly just hit a button and then open your list of places to like fast travel to, zoom to.
Yeah.
Battles can be a bit faster now. The game just looks gorgeous. It's so pleasant that after a month of Silent Hill 2 remake discourse, it's just like, oh, people are enjoying this.
I feel like I was spared of Silent Hill 2 remake discourse, honestly, because I only talked to you guys about it.
I'm happy for you. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, I don't know. People get really weird about that video game specifically, so I'm glad people are not all that weird about Dragon Quest, at least the people that actually play it. So can you sort of break down what Dragon Quest 3 is for me? Because I'm not a Dragon Quest person.
Yeah, sure. I would have GC's help, but unfortunately he is leaving the podcast to get groceries. No, I'm going to be real.
Okay.
GC's going to listen to this when he's edited. He's going to shake his little fist. Tiny little baby man shaking his little fist. Oh, baby man.
How tall is he? How tall is GC?
Oh, he's like 4 or 5. Little tiny little baby man, tiny little scrunched up little baby man, 4 or 5 baby man. Anyway, so Dragon Quest 3 is the story of a like you turn 16 and your mom like takes you to see the king, and the king says, hello, little boy. Your dad was the coolest guy ever who tried to go defeat the archfiend Baramos, but he fucking disappeared. And I was like, 15 years ago. Now that you are of age, we want you to go out, build a party of people,
and
just
Baramos.
Yeah, go find and fuck up Baramos. And then the game says, figure it out. Obviously, the remake will like provide like objective markers for if you want to turn that on, and it'll give you like an objective list, which is honestly just great in general to like have newcomers kind of get it more. And it's even better that they let you basically turn all that shit off if you don't want it. But the whole thing of Dragon Quest 3 is that it's like, figure it out. You have this big world to explore, and you just need to go figure out what to do. So you go from like town to town, helping people with their problems and piecing together kind of what happened to your dad as you like go, while also getting everything you need to go find and defeat Baramos.
Okay.
So
Is your dad Baramos?
No. Your dad fell into a volcano.
And died?
I don't know. Play the game.
Fuck.
So it is a very simple structure for a game, but this was made like on NES, like way back in the day where like RPGs didn't really need to be complex.
Mm-hmm.
But for its time, it was pretty like, you know, it was, there's a reason why Dragon Quest 3 was one of the most important games ever released in Japan. It came out a month after Final Fantasy 1 and kind of completely blew it out of the water in terms of just like scale and game design and all the stuff you can do. And I think that's one of the things that I appreciate so much about this remake is that it is pretty faithful to the original game. Like, it did not need to add or change that much. It like expands on it. Like, all the locations are like a bit bigger. Like, the dialogue is like, you know, spruced up a little bit because it doesn't have to worry about character limits on the old ass NES, like stuff like that. So it feels a bit more fleshed out, but it does so in a way that doesn't make it feel bloated. Is
this the Dragon Quest game that like people were lining up for and like
skipping school?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yes.
Okay. Oh my God, he's
It
back.
is. He never left.
This is the Dragon Quest game that people erroneously believe that the Japanese government was like, hey, you can't sell this on a weekday. That wasn't true.
Which game was that?
No, like it's sort of like a misunderstanding of what happened. They did not say, hey, you can't sell these on weekdays because it actually disrupts the workday. When they released it, I can't remember if they were already Square Enix by the time Dragon Quest 3 came out.
I think it was just
It was
Enix.
Square Enix, yeah.
Enix owned Dragon Quest before the merger, so
Yeah, it was Enix.
So Enix was like, oh, okay, that was bad. We're going to release them on weekends from now on. And that was like the reason why they did that back in the day. That's why Dragon Quests started coming out on weekends in Japan. It was because I believe it was after Dragon Quest 3, they realized that so many people were like calling out of work or skipping school to buy it that they did not want to cause that problem again.
Which is hilarious because this definitely came out on a Thursday, like worldwide.
This one, yeah, but like nowadays things are a little bit
less
more
people
relaxed.
care.
So Monster Hunter's kind of similar in that way where, do you remember when Rise came out? Like some companies were like, everyone's just getting the day off because we know you're just not going to show up anyways. So
I didn't know
Monster
that.
Hunter's taken that mantle. Yeah, Rise was coming out and then
Square wishes they had a game release that could do that.
yeah.
They had Dragon Quest, but
They did, but I don't know. Even in Japan, I feel like the enthusiasm's not as like there as much. It's a bummer. But anyway, Dragon Quest 3. This game this was my escapism game for the last 2 weeks. It
I love that
is
for you.
exactly what I needed, because the thing that's so amazing about Dragon Quest 3 and a lot of older Dragon Quest games is that nature of just like, hey, here's a world, figure out what to do. We don't fucking like, we're not like, you know, we're cleaning our hands of this and we're letting you do whatever. Like, obviously there is some linearity there and it does push you in the right directions, but it like, especially, and this is very much like why I would recommend that, like, don't turn on objective markers on your first playthrough. If you're really lost, do it. I don't actually care. But the experience of figuring out where to go is so satisfying in this game. It is really, really enjoyable, especially at the point where you get your boat, because for the first like 10 or so hours, you're like landlocked and just going like, you're just, roaming the countrysides and going from town to town and in a more linear progression. But as soon as you get your boat, the entire world opens up to you.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, we have put 6 orbs across this world. Go find them. And like, people will be like, oh, maybe you should go here. This place could have something that could be worth checking out. Like if you actually talk to NPCs. But besides that, it just lets you go.
Yep.
And the remake is great because it does log your, like if you do find a crucial piece of information, like someone being like, hey, go to that town, it'll like, it'll give you that in your little quest log. But, if you don't turn the objective markers on, it expects you to just go find it.
It also helps that Dragon Quest 3, I don't know if the Super Famicom version had this, but the Game Boy Color version did. You can press start after talking to any NPC and it will save the dialogue from that NPC in a log that you can look at later. So
yes.
What's cool about Dragon Quest 3 and what I'm appreciating playing the remake is that it is a very good reminder that video games and RPGs specifically did not need to become more linear. It is proof that like you can still do an RPG in the old school style of RPGs where it is more like you are given a task and you are expected to figure out how to solve that task or accomplish that task. And you are allowed to journey wherever you want, albeit within reason, but you are still given a lot of freedom to do things in whatever order you want.
Mm-hmm.
It's so like, there's so much catharsis of like either getting to the end of a like tricky dungeon or finding where to go, or like there's just so many moments of like stopping and going like, okay, so like you open your map and you go like, all right, so I haven't checked out maybe like this island or that island, and I haven't checked out that continent. And like in the back of my mind, I have heard like rumors from NPCs of like 4 or 5 different places for me to go. Let me just decide in what order I want to do this. And the game just lets you do it.
Yep.
It is really just so nice that the remake gets it so much.
Yeah.
Because I spent the first like 10 to 15 hours being like comparing it to the like other versions. And then at a certain point, I was just like, oh, I'm playing Dragon Quest 3. And I just like kind of turned my brain off a little bit and just started playing the video game again. And the ways in which they get the original game and are so faithful to it while building on top of it in ways like that don't go too far just kind of makes this feel like more of a replacement in my mind for Dragon Quest 3 than the original game. It's like, if you're going to play a version of Dragon Quest 3, you just play this one.
Yeah. And
like, obviously, if you're like, oh, I don't want to spend 60, what do you about that then? If I don't want to buy it, it's like, then just play the original if you want, obviously. But like, if there's a version of like a classic Dragon Quest to point people in the direction to, it's this one. They did an amazing job.
Yeah, and as a returning Dragon Quest veteran, because that's what I'm known for, whatever. Like coming back to Dragon Quest 3 for the remake was really cool because they have added things to the world map, to area. Like first of all, obviously all the areas are reconstructed, so even if you're familiar with the map, and navigation is going to be a little different. But traversing the overworld now has things in it. So even though I know where to go, I'm still sort of like exploring the world map for the new things that are there. And that's really nice because it makes me feel like I'm playing it for the first time again. It makes me feel like I'm walking into a brand new Dragon Quest experience without it being that. And I'm very appreciative of that. I think those are some really nice additional details that elevate the remake into something worth playing, even if you've played Dragon Quest 3 1,000 times. Because if it was just a visual upgrade, I'll be honest, I'll be like, yep, that's Dragon Quest 3. And I would have been like, okay, it's good. And then I probably would have put it down and not finished it. I'm probably going to finish this one.
Oh, yeah. I think that's the thing that they really understood, where it's like, yeah, obviously you can make the world bigger, because like if you go look at footage of the old like versions of Dragon Quest 3, it's the same thing as all old ass RPGs, where it's like there's a lot of abstraction in how the world maps are built, and you're getting from point A to point B on these overworlds, and you're not really like caring. Like overworld exploration in these old ass games is always fun, and I do always like it. But you are essentially, it's just a way to take you to different like maps, like actually detailed maps they've built. Whereas in Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D, it's like the world map is so detailed.
It's true.
It is massive now. And like to not make it just feel like it's full of empty space though. Yeah, like they added these little spots where it's either you can get like gear like you pick up, or maybe you'll like find a little secret spot of the map where it's a tiny little area where you could like recruit a monster or something.
Yeah, it's a hidden map. So it's a hidden area that loads into a new zone, like a tiny new zone. And it's cool. I dig it. I also dig the monster stuff, the monster recruiting stuff. They basically took the ideas from that are introduced in future Dragon Quest games. They basically backported that into Dragon Quest 3 and added a monster recruitment mechanic to it. And then they changed the monster arena from Dragon Quest 3, which used to just be gambling on like what monster would win in an AI fight. They changed that to no, you recruit the monsters, you make your team, and you actually have them fight in the arena, similar to future Dragon Quest games. There is a shocking, for the fans of the series, there is a shocking amount of references to Dragon Quest 8 in this. Like a lot of them. Like a suspicious amount of them.
If they really wanted to have like lock in and reference Dragon Quest 8 though, they should have had the Monster Wrangler be able to summon your team of monsters.
I know, it sucks that you can't do that.
It's like GC and I were talking about this on the stream when he played it on launch day. And I'm just like, I'm kind of, as a Dragon Quest fan, over time, slowly accepting that I think 8 is the best game we've ever gotten. And I don't know the next time we're going to get even close to it.
What, you don't mean Dragon Quest 12 is going to blow your mind and be the dark fantasy you've always wanted and dreamed of?
I mean, I'd probably really like Dragon Quest 12.
Honestly, I'm convinced. If Yuji Horii if Yuji Horii looks at me and goes, I'm going to make a dark, grim Dragon Quest, and like I fully expect Yuji Horii, just when he says something like that, I fully expect it to be like, look, he's wearing eyeliner this time, and then that's it. That's the extent of like what he means by dark and brooding.
They also said that this will be inspired by Game of Thrones, and I fucking hate how many Japanese developers are like, but what if we just did Game of Thrones? And it's like, stop.
Guys, you're aware that Game of Thrones ended badly, right? This is not a good idea.
Well, it's also like a fundamental misunderstanding of like what makes Game of Thrones Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know. But I don't know. I guess this might as well just public knowledge now, right? That like they've basically restarted development on 12.
Many times. Yeah, like the game is clearly in development hell. I don't believe that they're gonna do dark fantasy anymore.
No, I don't think
and
so.
Like, to be honest, like any more than like other Dragon Quests already are. Like those games have their moments of being like kind of dark as fuck. Anyway, 5 has you be a child slave. Like the games know when to get dark anyway.
They're already plenty grim.
Yeah.
It's like a fundamental misunderstanding of what makes something dark, right?
Yeah.
There was that complaint with Veilguard where it's like, this game isn't dark enough. And it's like, because there are colors in the video game. You know, now that you guys are talking about it, yeah, I can see that also sort of, I guess, being a thing with Dragon Quest 2, where maybe the team was like, oh, we want to make it dark and gritty. But like you mentioned, there's a game where you play as like a child soldier or something.
slave.
You start
Child
Dragon
slave,
Quest V. Well, you don't start Dragon Quest V, but you eventually become a child slave in Dragon Quest V.
I'll just say the full thing. At the beginning of Dragon Quest V, you are a little boy with your dad who is like, you know, roaming the world after your mom died very, like, you know, when you were very young.
She died giving birth to you.
Died giving birth to you.
Oh.
And then your dad is set off to go rescue a prince of a nation and is murdered right in front of you. And then you are enslaved
by the people that kill him.
By the people who murdered your dad in front of you and forced to be a slave for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Hey, I think Final Fantasy 16 wanted to be that so bad. Anyways.
Oh my god, I'm right.
To circle back though on something GC said, which I thought was very funny, where GC was like, "Oh, if it was just an upgrade, I don't know if I'd finish it." I'm like, GC, come on.
Yeah, I know.
Come on.
Yeah, I'd play
you would have.
I'd play it.
All it
Mr.
took
loves Dragon Quest.
for you to replay monsters from like start to finish, like Dark Prince, was it to just come to another like platform.
I didn't finish it. Okay, I didn't get that far. I got to the second set of echelons.
That's pretty far.
Yeah. How many hours do I have on that actually? Yeah, I put 23 hours into it.
That's still a lot.
That's a lot.
I didn't even get that far. When I like got my code to like look at the mobile port, I got maybe like a couple hours in. I was like, cool, I see what this port is. Dunzo.
Still gonna go back and play more too.
But like this is a fucking brilliant remake. I reviewed it at RPG Site. That's why I was playing it early. I gave the game a 9. It was one of those 9s where I was like, fuck, what do I have problems with in this game? And I had to think about it. I had to actually think about like issues I had. And it was hard to do so because they got it so hard. And I'm going to be eyeballing like sales numbers on this because I feel like there's just been no buzz around it at all. And it's such a bummer because this is one of the best HD 2D games they have ever made.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's doing really good on PC by Dragon Quest standards. So
let's go.
Somebody had stats for it on Blue Sky, and it was like the second most played Dragon Quest game on PC on Steam was like 375 players at peak, like at once. Obviously, this doesn't mean shit for single player games, but it gives you a kind of idea of how many people have like actually bought it and are actively playing it. So like it's useful for that kind of. By comparison, the remake has a peak players of 36,500, and most
good.
Most of them are from Japan.
I have a feeling that like in Japan this is gonna do great. It's gonna be one of those situations, I think, like Dark Prince, where they were like, yeah, Dark Prince sold like 1 million copies, and in the back of my head I was like, okay, so most of that was Japan, because there's no way people in the West bought this with that like marketing campaign y'all did.
Yeah, no.
Absolutely no chance. But it's been so just fun to play this game, and like it is so easy to just get lost in it and just immerse yourself in this world.
That's the joy of Dragon Quest.
It really is.
It's simple. It's got a very sincere story. It's not trying to like complicate things and tell a fucking story where you have to read the Silmarillion to understand. You just fucking
you go and you help people.
That's it.
It is like hero wish fulfillment.
And there's like, you know, I have my tinfoil hat theory of like what the Dragon Quest series is actually about, but like largely like there's like a theme of family, and there's like, if you wanted to get into it, Dragon Quest 3 is a lot about like, it's a very simple story, but they still manage to like kind of tell a story about a kid who's trying to outgrow the shadow of his father. And that's like a very real thing in that game. So like if you're looking for depth, if you're looking for something interesting, that's there. It's just not going to like talk about it. It's just going to kind of just show you that's
actually
what's happening.
Can we talk about that? That's a really good point that you bring up. I absolutely 100% agree with GC's like theory that the games overall is like that like it is telling a story of like a family. No, actually explain your idea and then I'll kind of like talk about how like what the remake of 3 kind of adds on to Ortega to maybe like add to this and show you in a different light.
So I have this idea. I've played all the Dragon Quest games at this point, all the mainline series stuff. I've played them all very front to back, very comprehensively. I've broken them down in videos, whatever. For anyone that doesn't know, I'm known for Dragon Quest Retrospective that I started in like 2015, 2016. And I've basically been doing it since I started doing YouTube, and it's like my most popular stuff. And after playing all the games, I basically have this theory that Yuji Horii, who has been the central writer for the mainline series the entire time, he has been in total control. He writes all the stories. He basically does all the screenplay stuff, with the exception of Dragon Quest VII, where he literally had to get help in order to meet deadlines, but he still had largely most of it done already, etc. My theory is that Yuji Horii has been telling a story about his life through the series, because in every Dragon Quest game, there is a through line of basically a young man who sets out on a journey, and sort of like it kind of revolves around Yuji Horii's life, like as a kid, having a parent, growing up, sort of rebelling against his parents, becoming a parent, running into the same problems that his parents had with him, with his kids, and like sort of not wanting to repeat those same mistakes with his kids. And then there's like even like a moment where he's very apologetic about a thing he did, which is what Dragon Quest IX is kind of about. And that's around the time he was having the affair with somebody that was working on the series with him.
Wait, what?
Yeah, like there's parallels to draw between Yuji Horii's life and like the sort of like the journey he has had and the story of Dragon Quest. And I can go into each game and do that, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to focus on 3, and I'm going to be like, okay, Dragon Quest 3 is essentially Yuji Horii. Now it could be him, or it could be about his life, or he could literally just be telling a story that has nothing to do with him. Or a story that has nothing to do with him. He just wanted to do that through line, right? In Dragon Quest 3, right? The premise of Dragon Quest 3 is that you have a father. His name is Ortega. And through flashbacks at the start of the game, you learn that Ortega set out to defeat the great evil of the land and failed. But, and you can see this in the Game Boy Color version if you just let the title screen roll, on his journey, Ortega basically makes a name for himself. He goes to every town, every like civilization in the world, and he leaves his mark there, and he does something for the people there. When you start playing Dragon Quest 3 and you go out into the world, you are told, hey man, your dad failed defeating the great evil. You were raised to do that. You were raised to do what he couldn't. So we need you to go out there and go defeat that evil. And in every town you go to in Dragon Quest 3, everybody you talk to, in every fucking town you go to, everybody you talk to has something to say about Ortega. Sometimes it's somebody who was like, oh yeah, Ortega saved me when I was young, or oh yeah, Ortega came into town and we had a really good time, and like, you know, he whatever, and this and that, or oh,
there's like a whole town in 3 where like all they do is glaze your dad.
Yeah.
Like it literally everyone in the town's like, we fucking love Ortega. Welcome to Ortega town.
Yeah. And as you go through this, as you go through playing this game, you're like, man, my dad was really cool. My dad was really cool. But eventually you're like, man, who the fuck give a shit about my dad? What about me? What about me? What about what I'm doing? What about what I'm trying to do? And it instills this sense of like, at first you're trying to do what he can't do, but then slowly and surely you set out to surpass what he couldn't do. You set out to surpass his accolades. And so you show up to these places who have these problems, and you save the day, but all they have to say is, oh yeah, you're Ortega's son, right? Oh yeah, whatever. And then
that explains it.
Yeah.
That explains why you're able to do this, because you're Ortega's kid.
Yeah. And that's frustrating, right? But it's intentionally frustrating. If you're the character, if you're the hero and your accolades and your credit keeps going to your dad, you are constantly in his shadow. You are constantly trying to break out of the shadow that is your father. And you can't, because your dad is literally the world's most famous person. So the third act of Dragon Quest III happens, and without saying anything about the third act of Dragon Quest III, the game pivots and it goes, okay, it is time now for you to break out of your father's shadow. It is time now for you to do something different, to create your own legend, your own legacy, to be your own person. And without going too deeply into it, if we're going through the through line that this is a story being told across all the games, Dragon Quest I is about a guy who sets out on his own. He is the descendant of a super legendary hero. He is the descendant of a god tier character. And he basically just does his duty as the descendant of this character. And that's it. He does what he's told, right? And he meets expectations. In Dragon Quest II, that legacy is being broken down to multiple people. And so the story becomes less about the legacy of the person that came before and more about, meeting other people who also share that legacy, who also sort of have a responsibility to do things, and sort of realizing that there's we all have different skills and we come from different experiences and stuff like that. And this person is starting to realize that there's more to life. There's more to existing than just meeting expectations being by yourself. And then you get to Dragon Quest III, and that individual is now frustrated and struggling to break free of what came before. That individual is struggling to break free of what has been and what will be and what is expected of him. And this eventually funnels into Dragon Quest IV, where at the end of Dragon Quest III, that character of this long story breaks free of the shadow of the person that he's stuck in. And he meets other people who are also doing the same thing. And together they accomplish something that was deemed impossible. Together they do what couldn't be done, right? And it's sort of like a moment of meeting your peers and stuff like that. And the series goes on, and Dragon Quest V is about literally him getting married and having kids and
realizing he's not the most important person in his own life. Like
realizing it's great, I did all this cool shit. Oh fuck, I'm nothing I've done, I'm not the most important person anymore. It's not about me anymore. It's about this thing that I've created, this child. And then Dragon Quest VI is sort of about an identity crisis. And then Dragon Quest VII is about kids getting older. And then Dragon Quest VIII is about kids leaving the nest. Dragon Quest IX is feeling remorse for the estranged relationship with those kids. Dragon Quest X, I haven't played all the expansions to, so I don't know how it fits into this. But Dragon Quest XI is sort of like a reconciliation with the children. And it's sort of like a moment where Yuji Horii kind of I ended up explaining the whole fucking thing. It's
yeah, you did. It's cool.
It's Dragon Quest XI is basically reconciliation and realizing that you can't take back what's been said, and they can't go backwards in time to fix their relationship or rebuild their relationship or change what has already happened. They have to move forward, and it's sort of it is his plea to maintain his relationship with his children, this character that we've been following throughout this series subtextually. And it is essentially a hope for the future, a hope for having a relationship with his children in the future, to maintain a sense of family amongst them and stuff like that. And 3 is a really important part of that long story, because 3 is sort of one of the many turning points in the saga that I've invented in my head, I guess, where it's about becoming your own person. It's about becoming like finding a self identity that you can like be proud of, something like separate from your parents or your father figures or your mentors and stuff like that. And yeah, it's great. It's a great game.
It is.
I forgot where we were talking about this.
No, we were, because something I think that's really cool about 3 is that in the original versions, you kind of get this idea of Ortega as just like this fucking badass who maybe made like one mistake and then got like, and then he fucking dies. And he's no longer in your life because like he just couldn't do it at the very end. But playing the remake, I got this feeling like every time they kind of go back to like, you see more about Ortega, and it seems like him going off on his own was his biggest mistake. And that is something that you literally like cannot do in 3 to make it ahead. Like you make your party because like, even though you're the hero, you need a strong party to beat this game. And you're getting this from a gameplay perspective. And like, as you go through these like challenges and you're making it by, and you keep seeing these like flashbacks to Ortega, and Ortega is succeeding by himself, but he's kind of pushing people away.
Yes.
He's taking on all this burden by himself. And that at the end of the day, he's left with no one. He's left with a legacy, and that doesn't mean anything because he couldn't be there to take care of his kids. Like, well, his kid and his wife, and I guess either his dad or dad-in-law who's, mooching at your house and doesn't contribute and, is just kind of there. But like, and I was getting this, like, these feelings while playing. I was just like, was my dad kind of a bum? Like, why? Like, I'm playing this game and like, and because they also give new scenes to your mom, and your mom, like, Dragon Quest, if nothing else, loves moms.
Yeah.
The series has gotten really good at being like, moms are fucking awesome. And I will always tear up at a really good mom scene in media. Don't ask what that says about me. But like, and you get this, like, when your mom is like having these emotional moments with you in this game that weren't there before, I feel bad for my mom, and I don't want to leave my mom like my fucking bum ass dad did, who like, and yeah, like Ortega did all this for you, but like, if Ortega had been willing to, and also I know this is probably really dumb if people have like played Dragon Quest and they're just like, oh, it's a simple NES game. What are you guys on about? Shut up. But like, the fucking like, you get this feeling that if Ortega had let people in, all of this would have been avoided, because Ortega was strong enough to get to where he, like, as far as he did by himself. But obviously that meant nothing in the end, because he still fucking lost.
It's a really good, like, if you want to like look at it, it's a really good like sort of thing of like, you don't have to do the things that you want to achieve on your own, where it's like you can get help, like it's okay. And then if Dragon Quest 3 is about like finding your identity as like an individual, it's like that doesn't necessarily mean pushing people away. In fact, other people will help you sort of like find your identity and stuff like that.
It's the kind of thing that where like, if you were to add these little extra details and layers to Dragon Quest 3, they add to the story instead of take away, like the movie of Dragon Quest 5, which I don't want to get into, but like, this is,
now that's a remake that if they ever did, they should change fucking nothing.
Yes, it is. Just at the end of the day, you get this idea that the HD 2D remake was made by people who fucking love Dragon Quest 3 and get it down to the most minute detail.
Yeah.
Great. Amazing game.
I should make a video about that headcanon I have.
You should.
Be a fun one.
And like, so playing this game over all these 2 weeks, it really made me feel a lot better about the state of the world. And then when I wasn't playing Dragon Quest, I was watching a show called Death Note, and it made me feel the opposite. Did you have anything more to talk about Dragon Quest?
No, let's talk about Death Note.
Let's talk about Death Note.
So how about them kids?
Which kids?
Fuck them kids.
Which kids?
The kids.
The kids?
The kids. The kids that show up literally halfway into the series.
Oh, yes,
oh
those
God,
kids.
fucking Near or whatever the fuck
Near
his name is.
and Mellow.
Yeah.
I had never seen Death Note until just a couple weeks ago when my girlfriend and I were looking for things to watch, as you do. And lately, because I've been on this big kick of like, I want to experience as much old media as possible. If you've been listening to our podcast for a while, you'll know I basically only ever talk about old shit I'm watching. I don't know. I want to catch up on like old culture, and I want to be more cultured, and I want to have all these like experiences that I missed out on growing up. I never, ever knew anything about Death Note. I was a Code Geass kid through and through, and I still am. But like, we started watching Death Note, and I'd say for about like, the first 10 or so episodes, I'm like, okay, so I'm not getting anything out of this show. Like, it's not like changing my life, or like, I'm not seeing anything truly groundbreaking here, but I'm really fucking entertained. Like, at the beginning of Death Note, it is a wonderfully like set up show that where things are happening at a very fun pace, and our protagonist, who is not someone you root for at all, is like setting himself up to fail in ways that only the audience really can see. And it is very fun to see him dig his hole deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
And eventually he is met like face to face with his biggest adversary. This man named L, who is investigating. Maybe we should explain what Death Note is before we jump ahead.
High school student finds a little book that a demon owns, and the demon says, you now control the Death Note. It says Death Note on it. Whenever he writes someone's name in the book, they die. There's other rules, but that's basically it.
Yes. And so very quickly, like one of my favorite details about it is he finds this Death Note, and I think like for the first episode, he starts for a while being like, I don't know, should I use this? What, like, do I have the right? Oh, and then he tries it on one guy, and he's like, oh my God, because like, and to be fair, the first time he does it, the guy is like, he's holding like an elementary school hostage, and he's like gonna kill a bunch of kids. So Light is just like, he writes his name there, and it works. And then, and it's a Shinigami, not exactly a demon. Actually, but like, so the Shinigami who dropped it shows up at his house, and he's like, hey, so that's my Death Note, yada, 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 all of this. What have you been doing with it? And he's like, yeah. So it's like maybe like a time skip of like a week between that first time. And he's like, he pulls out the Death Note, is like, I've already filled out like 5 pages of names. I'm going to become the god of the new world, and I am going to murder criminals, and anyone who gets in my way is dead. And so immediately we're like, okay, cool. So like, this is a guy who is very clearly like, while he has like, he wants the future to go a certain way, is basically like fueled mostly by ego. And that is the most important thing to him, is his ego, not entirely the world he wants to and how he wants it to be better, but he wants a world where he is like judge, jury, and executioner, and he decides who lives and dies.
Righteousness presented as being something morally good and correct.
Yes. And I will say, because ultimately I think the show is kind of about nothing. Like, they do want you to think that Light is not someone to root for. The problems with Death Note, though, is that it gets really fucking boring after a while.
You can just say that at the I wouldn't even say it's a halfway point. I think like
it's the last third.
Yeah, it's so, I don't know, that Yeah.
Basically, the Death Note show is from what I am gathering, is kind of a poor adaptation of the manga, because around episode 25 of the show, of this 37 episode show, a big shift happens, and Light wins in a way. And from there, that is the halfway point of the manga, but the 2/3 point of the show. So they end up having to like rush the last whole half of the manga into a very disappointing last third of the Death Note show. And a lot of the fun of early Death Note is seeing this fucking egotistical dipshit cause his own problems, and seeing on the investigation side, them try to figure out what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
Because people are just dying. Like it is accepted pretty early that this is a supernatural event. Because one of the things about the Death Note is you can write the way someone dies and it will happen. But if you just write their name, they just die of heart attacks. And Light, because he's a fucking egomaniac who wants people to realize this is something going on, is just giving people heart attacks. So people take notice and eventually they call him Kira. And Kira begins to be worshipped as the god of the new world, because anyone who is deemed like corrupt or, a criminal is just dying. And it's becoming this big media skeptical.
And a lot of the joy from early Death Note, like you were saying, is like, what's interesting is that L pretty much knows who Kira is. Like he pretty much figures it out. The thing of like the reason there's tension and the reason there's whatever is because he doesn't know how the fuck he's doing it.
Yes.
And that is like the tension where he is getting closer to figuring it out, but since he's a logical person, he has to kind of like think outside of the means of reality.
Yes.
And that is the challenge for him, because he is a detective. He is like, there are reasons and logic for everything, that kind of
thing. And unfortunately, his opponent is like, he has magic rules on his side.
Yes.
To allow him to get away with bullshit. So it's a very entertaining and engaging back and forth.
Yeah. It is magic versus science.
Some would call it yaoi.
It is very classic.
It
is very classic tokusatsu shit, where it's like it's science versus magic, and it's like, okay.
And it's like it's so fucking fascinating the lengths in which Light goes to to win against this guy. And and what's so interesting as a viewer is seeing the lengths in which Light is going to try to unfuck his situation. And always, like, even if he like gets closer to like getting himself out of suspicion, kind of puts himself back in. And so this back and forth is really interesting. Like you start out really early on where like before L really gets involved, but is still like suspicious overall, is like the FBI comes to Japan to try to figure out like who Kira is. Because like one of the very first things L does is he's like, because Light has been killing people all over the world based off of like people he sees on TV.
Yes.
And so like L's first ploy is he puts out something he calls a worldwide announcement only in certain spots of the world. And so he literally puts a guy out on screen, like a man whose like name is there, because you need a name and a face to use the Death Note. That's like the biggest rule and it's like, hey, so like, hi, I'm L and this is my name. I'm going to get you, Kira. And immediately, because Light is a fucking dipshit, pulls the Death Note out and kills him right away. And he fucking dies. And then the actual L goes, hey, so that wasn't me. That was a guy on like
Death Row.
And I only showed this out in Japan. So I've learned a lot right away about the kind of guy you are. And then Light's like, well, shit, you know what? To make sure I get more names and to figure out what's going on, I'm going to hack into my dad, because his dad's like the chief of police or some bullshit. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to hack into his computer and I'm going to get all the information. And then he goes, cool. So now we know that Kira has ties to the police. So the suspect list is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking till it's like, cool. So we know that Kira is related to one of the police members. And so they start like, all right, cool. So bug the Yagami house.
Yeah.
So then you have like, because Light has like, you know, the Shinigami and like he has his own kind of like shit going on. It's like, so how's Light going to get out of this? His house is bugged and he can't use the Death Note. And so he's finding ways to do this because he's constantly under surveillance. Oh wait, I forgot about the fucking hilarious FBI one where the FBI is following Light and Light's realized he's getting followed. And in Light's head, he's like, I have to kill the person following me. That'll be the only way I get out of suspicion. And the guy who's following him is literally thinking, it's like, well, I've been following Light for this long and he's not doing anything. I think Light is clear. I'm about to go home. And while that's happening, Light orchestrates this whole fucking thing in where like he gets on a bus with a girl he's like pretending to go out with, and like he writes a criminal's name in the Death Note to control him to hijack the bus, and just so we can learn the FBI guy's fucking name and kill him. And then they immediately figure out like, okay, so who was he trailing? Light Yagami, and he died after that. Interesting.
It is like in a different way. Death Note is about like the fucking like reality of what absolute power does to a motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like someone with absolute power is like the paranoia, the fucking egotism, like all of that. Like it is literally just sort of showcasing that. Like,
I would already argue that Light was already sort of predetermined to go down that path.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
like
absolutely.
That freak that goes to fucking cram school, has perfect grades, is like the most accomplished person in his school, and like recognizes that about himself in a way that is less than humble. Yeah.
And the wild thing is that like the truly scary thing, right, is that no one suspects him of being capable of doing those things, and everyone loves him.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone loves him. Meanwhile, he's an egotistical maniac, and he's like obsessed with the power that he's been given. And it's a very nice little like anyone who watches or reads Death Note, please understand, you are not supposed to be rooting for Light. You are supposed to be watching you are watching
his
villain.
downfall.
Yeah, it's like, it's the same effect of like Breaking Bad, right? Like you don't watch Walter White become who he is and be like, good job, guy. Like
it's like, oh, that was sad that he like died at the end. Oh, that's such a bummer, man. I was rooting for him. Like you are watching this fucking maniac who starts off bad. And that's the thing, Kazuma. And that's the thing I really like about the very first episode is that it shows that he only needed the slightest push and he started and he fucking immediately went crazy with power.
Yes.
And so there's no like granted, he gets worse, but his ways of getting worse is being fucking stupid. And it's showing
he
this
slips
guy
on a banana peel like constantly. He keeps slipping on banana peels to like the last 1/3.
It highlights the incompetence of people in power.
Yeah, but like as a viewer, I'm like, this is entertaining. I'm really liking this back and forth. And unfortunately,
it ends.
At episode 25, the fun part of the show dies.
The interesting part, like the most compelling element of the show.
Dynamic is fucking severed in a way that's not even that well earned. But like it's a really good episode all the same, and it's a really good scene, and it sets up something that could be compelling, but the further, and then like a time skip happens, and the further you get into this, you go, oh my God, this did not need to play out this way, and it has made this story incredibly fucking boring. Because then your main character, who like, again, one of the most fun things about Light was like seeing him out and about and like trying to be like a normal person and trying to live this double life. And at the halfway point of the story, you basically give him the keys to the castle and make his job as Kira way too fucking easy, and he gets boring. I swear to you all, outside of one thing early on where he has to go on a plane, and even then, Light spends the last part of the show in 2 rooms. He sits in front of a computer for the end of the show. And there's no longer this fun dynamic where like literally at one point L is like, hey, so even though another fun thing in the way like the deck is stacked against L and he still manages to kind of like keep going and keep this thing interesting is at a certain point, like Light is under massive suspicion and he figures out if I give away my death note, I can lose all my memory.
Yeah.
So he has this plan where he gives his death note up and then allows himself to be locked in under surveillance for like 3 months in solitary confinement. So he loses all his fucking memory. And for like a couple episodes, Light is like a good guy.
Yeah. Light is actively trying to help solve the case.
To catch Kira. And it's really interesting. And like, and L, because L doesn't fucking believe it entirely, is like, cool. So like, I'm going to change, like, we're going to handcuff ourselves together because I want to be around you 24/7. And so all of L's deductions are literally because he is there and he is observing Light. And he's like, he is an active participant. And Light's antagonist in the second part is someone who only meets him at the very end and only talks to him via Skype calls and is pulling all this shit out of his fucking ass on how he's able to defeat Light. Because I am so disappointed with where Death Note goes because Death Note's ending is not bad. It's undeserved because the guy who fucking figures it out does not earn any of it in a way that's satisfying for the viewer. And
because
our protagonist
somebody else did the legwork for him.
Someone else did everything for him. And all he is doing now is just sending people out to do his job, calling him every day and going like, I know it's you. I bet it's you. Oh, I bet it's you. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out. And like, and occasionally in this little last like second part of the show, you get a little something to happen where you go, oh, wait, this is interesting. Are we going to do something cool? And it's like, no. Like at one point, and I'm sorry if I'm spoiling this fucking old show, like watch Death Note, I don't care, or don't, I don't know. But like at one point, they Light, because he's under so much suspicion, gives the death note to someone else. Well, still like having it on his like own person, like in a way that's like kind of like contrived, but he still keeps all his memories. It's whatever. But like he gives the death note to someone who like, while also crazy, has motivations for wanting the world to be better. And me as a viewer go, okay, I'm back on board because that's the one thing about Light. And that while it is interesting, is also makes it hard to really root for him as a character, is that Light is someone who nothing bad has ever happened to him in the entire world.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why he fucking goes crazy and like mad with power, because he's a fucking spoiled, like well-off brat pretty much.
He lacks empathy.
Yeah, he
Something
has
that
no
is established at the beginning of the show before he gets the death note, where he has no interest in anybody.
Yes.
He has,
and
he is so to himself. It is creepy.
Yes. And he is just going through the motions to try to look like a normal person. And they give the death note to this character who has like who is literally like, who worships Kira because Kira is a sign of justice. And this boy was like raised like in his childhood. Well, he's not a boy, he's like a guy, but like this character is like experienced injustice and tried to like stand up for people. And he like gets manipulated by the idea of Kira so much that he takes up the mantle. And it's like, you're not supposed to like this guy either. But as a viewer, I go, wow, someone who gives a shit.
It's also like he believes the false sense of justice that Kira like literally needs in order to like be in power, right?
Yes.
So like he's a sucker, but he's like a tragic sucker because like he means well, or he has like a vision for like a better world, and he's just bought into the wrong person.
Exactly. And I'm like, cool. This guy is giving me brainworms. I'm so excited to see what and then he stops basically being relevant immediately because they go, stop writing in the Death Note. Let's look at Light sit in front of a fucking computer and fucking go to another hotel room with one character and go back and forth between that. And I as a viewer am like, I'm so fucking bored because nothing is happening. And it's just, I really feel like the ending and how Light ends up getting his comeuppance is really, it's fun if it had come much sooner and if L had done it.
Yeah.
Because even like the way they figure it out and prove it at the end is really smart. But I don't give a fuck because Nier is nothing as a character and he's not interesting. And he sits there and he plays with toys and he goes, Light, you're a poo-poo stinky head. I bet you're Kiro. And then he like hangs up and it's just not interesting. And I'm so bummed. And I'm especially bummed because my girlfriend really wanted to show me this. Not as like, she's not like a Death Note super fan or anything, but it was like something where she was like, this was something I watched when I was younger. And I was like, that's cool. We get to like bond over, media this way in a way that's not, hey, watch Gundam with me. And she goes, I don't wanna, which fair. And I was so, I don't know. I had fun with it for the most part, but I spent that last third ripping my hair out, bored out of my fucking mind because all of the fun parts of the show died a slow, painful death.
I have some fun facts for you about the people that made Death Note.
Yeah.
They are a duo. Okay. One of them is Sugumi Oba. The other one is Takashi Obata. Sugumi Oba, nobody knows who they are.
Interesting.
It is a pen name. Their real identity is apparently very closely guarded. I don't know if recently that's changed. The wiki says that the author described themselves as a clean freak and usually cleans once a day. Oba says that they are fond of art lithographs, they collect teacups, and they develop manga plots while holding their knees on a chair. Which is similar to a character in Death Note, similar to L.
Yep.
It's a shame that Death Note does what it does and where it goes. You should watch if you are in any way curious as to sort of like why would they do that, right? Like, why would they make this decision in their story? Why would they do things like that? You might want to give their second series, because the two people that made Death Note, they went on to make other things together as well. Mm-hmm. You should read their second series. I don't think it has an anime adaptation, called Bakuman. And Bakuman is a story. One of my friends read it years ago, and he was telling me about it years ago. And it's about two kids in high school who want to become mangaka. And one of them is an illustrator and one of them is a writer. And they work together to try to get their various ideas serialized in Shonen Jump.
Huh.
And that is, from what I've been told, a very interesting manga.
Apparently it does have an anime.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
It's like 75 episodes. Damn. I might actually give that a shot. Because like, that's the thing. I think at the very least, like at some point they knew how to tell a story and then that kind of just got lost. And I don't mean to like hog the whole conversation, but I think I might have something that could bring Kazuma back in, at least, as a little hater.
I've been silent for like 40 minutes, by the way.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. This is a Cullen episode.
It goes in cycles.
It does. But I thought it was very interesting that around the time I was watching Death Note, I showed GC the first 3 episodes of a show that meant a lot to me with a very similar setup called Code Geass.
Oh, I fucking hate Code Geass. It's some of the biggest imperialist dog shit I've watched in a while. I'm so sorry for saying that, but it's literally propaganda. It's literally propaganda, my dude.
I will.
Sorry.
I cannot.
You basically shot him in the face. You shot him right in the face.
I was like silent, and I had like a 6-shooter, and I just like raised it, and I killed him like John
Bang!
Wick.
You did not kill me because I unfortunately like a lot of Code Geass, and it is a bit too ingrained into my brain.
No, I think it's fine if you like it. I just think it's like imperialist drivel. I don't like the way it looks. I don't like its writing. There are other pieces of media that I'd rather engage with, but I'm happy if other people find joy in things I don't like. But I was kind of pleased to hear that GC didn't really like it either.
It's
because
not
I was
okay.
like, am I going to be the only person on the podcast that doesn't care for Code Geass?
I mean, a lot of people don't care about Code Geass.
No, it was
But,
it was really, really popular when it came out. Like,
Oh,
you
yeah,
couldn't
no.
escape it.
But
and I
like
just remember
R2
just, like,
kind of
yeah?
tanked like a lot of the love people have for it.
What's
I
R2?
fucking love the second season.
Oh,
Did you not know there was a second season?
is that like the continuation series after Code Geass?
No, it's like Code Geass R1 and R2. It's like it's basically the last 25 episodes.
Because wasn't there like another Code Geass thing that came out recently? That was a mobile game. It was a mobile game. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, there's like another show that came out recently, and they made like another OVA series and all this.
Yeah.
And there's like some movies as well.
Okay.
But I quite like basically all of the original series a lot. I think Lelouch is my little Blorbo maximum.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what makes Lelouch a lot more engaging as a protagonist to someone like Light, even if that's Light's whole deal, is that Lelouch is someone who fucking like has had shit happen to him and has reasons to want to go as far as he does. So like, even if you, the viewer, thinks he does things that are reprehensible, it's still better than someone like Light Yagami, who I never root for the entire time, because he does not actually believe in the world he's trying to achieve, like get. He just wants to be the god of it. Whereas like at the very least, like someone like Lelouch is like, you're going down a really dark path, but you are, because the whole thing about Code Geass, it is a examination of.
I'm holding my face right now as you
we could
say
stop talking about it.
No. I'm just like, I think it's so interesting how you view this character when he's literally just like, yes, I must become the greater evil to unite the world. Me, the big imperialist inheritor of this entire series. Yes. GC, can you play Swain's theme in the background as I'm talking about this?
I mean, he's against the Empire, though. Like, he is actively fighting to tear it down.
Sure.
I don't want to get into an argument about this. I like the show a lot, and I think we just read it differently. And I'm not saying how you read it is bad or wrong. I'm just saying it's a bit too close to my heart, and I'd read it just in a bit of a different way. I don't think Code Geass is high art, but it is emotionally resonant to me in a lot of ways, and it was a foundational piece of media that I probably will never be able to let it go, even though every time I rewatch it, I notice a couple more things that are kind of dumb. But it just has a sense of dramatics to it that I think is very engaging, and I dig a lot.
I mean, it was popular for a reason, right?
Oh yeah. So. But anyway, I showed it to GC, and then I stopped at episode 3, and I said, I don't think you're gonna get anything out of this.
So it's not that I didn't like it. It's not that I hated it. It's not that I didn't find it interesting. This is one of those weird situations where, fun fact, everybody, me, GC, a big One Piece fan, not a big anime fan. Mm-hmm. So like, I don't really watch a lot of anime. And for various reasons, we've talked about this on previous episodes. Some anime dubbing, I do not like. I like ever since I was like very young, like it has really bothered me. So I don't really, I lose interest in a lot of anime either due to the acting, or the style of acting rather, because it's a style. It's not a problem with the performers. It is a style that is expected of that medium, or the art style. And Code Geass, while I was like willing and interested to see where the show was going, because like even if the show turns out to be good and I like it, that's great. If the show turns out to be bad and I don't like it, that's fine too. Like, I want to articulate the reasons why I feel that way about stuff, but the art style just completely like took me out of it. Like I thought, okay, this is an interesting premise, very similar to what we were talking about with Death Note, where it's like a character gets a power that is busted, right? Like a super busted superpower in a world where superpowers don't exist. And they can do things,
change the world.
Yeah, and in both cases they go down very dark paths and stuff like that, right? So okay, that premise is interesting. Who animates that show?
I just know it's Sunrise.
Somebody told me when we were watching it. Let me see. Studio. No, yeah, it's just Sunrise. Okay, so
yeah. But the like art designers are Clamp.
Okay. The show is animated well. The art style just completely takes me out of it. I hate that era of anime. I hate the way it looks. I cannot stand the aughts of anime, like the early to late 2000s. Like,
yeah, Code Geass and S-Cried, I think, are some of the ugliest things I've laid eyes on. But I'm excited for Cullen to watch S-Cried.
What is S-Cried?
I am also excited for Cullen to watch S-Cried. Now here's the thing, and I want now switch perspective from the GC POV to Cullen POV.
Yeah.
I was sitting there smiling and enjoying the beginning of that show as I did, and I noticed GC was particularly silent.
What do you mean?
And let me keep going. And like, you weren't liking the art style, and you wasn't like grabbing you. And I could see in the distance as we were standing on the train tracks, a train really far away. And the train was Kazuma going choo choo. And I was like, Hey, GC, let's get off the train tracks. Where I was like, I think, GC, I don't know what you would think of this show, but you and Kazuma are very similar, and that's not bad. But I was getting this kind of feeling where I was like, okay,
you attract people like us.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
You're so joyful. We have to suck it out of you.
But I was like,
if
okay.
Jake was here, Jake would be like, yeah, I want to watch stuff with you, whereas I'm just like, I will not suffer this indignity any further.
I was like, okay, so Cullen, you could sit here for 50 episodes and show someone one of your favorite pieces of media of all time. And like, just judging from those first 3 episodes, because that's the thing. If this show does not grab you immediately, I don't think it's going to hold on to you for long.
But you know what?
It's one of...
But you know what? Because I'm your friend, and because I am somewhat of a glutton for punishment, and also like I have this superpower because of I've explained this to you. I have a friend who showed me really, really crappy anime and movies.
Yeah.
And I had to sit through all of it all the time. For you, I would have done that because I love that friend and I also love you.
I appreciate it. Having said that, I was remembering back to our amazing time just dunking on Gundam Unicorn. And then I went, oh right. God, what if I was the Duncan, the Gundam Unicorn fan
it's
in that call,
now.
which we did not have, by the way, in our call. No one in our call liked Gundam Unicorn.
Thank God.
What if, though, I was the guy who was ride or die on this, and I had to be there to witness those talks, and I was just like, I don't know if I want to risk this.
You didn't want to show me more Code Geass because you didn't want this podcast episode to be me and Kazuma going, this show fucking sucks.
And then I would have had to be like, I like it. I like.
That's okay. Honestly, that's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know it's okay.
Fine. It's fine if you like it.
I love it.
No. No, here's the thing. Because it's not just I don't want to waste your time. It's like I don't know if I want to waste my time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I would love for us to one day talk about. There's 3 of us, so we would have to find something that gives 3 different opinions about it, right?
Yes.
Like 3 different extreme opinions about it.
Yes.
Get ready for our special holiday episode about Final Fantasy 16, everybody.
Oh, fuck off.
So
it's not fair because I'm not even as ride or die on that anymore. I just ride.
You'd also have to make me play more FF16, and I don't want to. So
don't do it. It's fucking bad.
So I would love an episode where we're all completely opposed on opposite ends of a triangle, because I get the feeling it would just result in us laughing about the fact that we will never come to an agreement. Because I feel like we're good enough friends.
Yeah.
Where it's we can do that. I can be like, Cullen, I hate this. And you can be like, GC, I love this. And Cosmo can be like, guys, I third something this. I don't know what the third love hate thing is.
See, no, but
I'm deeply indifferent, but I'm here to tell you the man that made it is a pedophile.
the triangle is not too structurally sound, because if Kazuma tells me he hates something I like, I go, okay, I'm just gonna go over here.
Well, that just means you respect him a lot. That just means you value his opinions.
Me with your words. Oh, okay.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, Cullen, I've never liked Code Geass.
I know. And that's the thing, because I can't sit here and one, I would never, because I don't like arguing. I'm not an argumentative person. But if you say these things like it's imperialist, what am I supposed to do but be the guy that goes, no, owned.
Yeah.
Checkmate, liberal. Oh, I like anime. That guy sucks.
Okay, anyways, outside of Code Geass, let's talk about some really problematic shit.
Do we have anything else on the docket?
Cullen,
you can take the talking stick.
I have so much to talk about, actually, and we're gonna hit at 2 hours and 30 minutes. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
It's okay. I'll tell my Rossifon group watch setup for after this that I might need a bit.
Okay. So I've been repurchasing books that I basically lost in my several moves. And I was like, you know what? I'm hitting a writer's block and I need to read something that's kind of comfortable and has more or less, in some ways, inspired my own personal writing style. No one is ever going to read my fiction ever because I'm nervous and scared, just because I don't want people thinking that I'm strange. So I repurchased Fight Club. For those of you that don't know, I actually quite like Palahniuk's writing style. I don't like the subjects he usually writes about. Like, for example, Haunted, I found viscerally disgusting, and it was just gross. It wasn't like American Psycho levels of detail, if any of you have read that. Have you guys read American Psycho?
No, I just watched the movie.
So American Psycho was really fucked up, and people have actually had physical reactions reading that book because of how descriptive some of the stuff is. Palahniuk's Haunted is almost the same way. It talks about, there is an entire section about a guy who basically had his intestines sucked out of his anus. And that was really like,
Tim,
yeah,
and
that was
like
really
that for real.
Yeah, it was, so basically that book is through several POVs, and the whole thing in the end is that everyone's trying to victimize themselves to such a degree that they are the greatest victim, therefore they have won the grand prize, whatever. I don't care for it. He's a fucking cynic. So I'm rereading Fight Club, and I am actively disliking it. For those of you that don't know, Fight Club is about male.
Going back to the club.
Yeah, going back to the club. We're dancing. We're fighting. It's about gay people. Fight Club is about gay men, repression, and quote unquote living in an age.
Oh, like Death Note.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's similar to Death Note, except the man in your head is real, and that man is Brad Pitt.
I already knew the man in my head was real. I hate that guy.
Yeah.
I don't want Brad Pitt in my head. He can't recognize faces.
Yeah. But it is very nihilist, because a lot of Palahniuk's works are in fact very cynical and very nihilist, and it follows that same sort of the same thorough line, right? Fight Club is a group of men that feel spurned by society. There's a line where it's a generation of men raised by women, men who don't have strong figures of authority in their lives, et cetera, et cetera. And I think this is why like a lot of incels feel very attracted to it, even though it's critiquing them and calling them fucking insane and like unhinged and everything. And you know, it is ultimately about like this dude being in love with this other dude who happens to be inside of his head. So it is what it is. The prose is fine. Don't really care for the book anymore. A really disappointing read in that regard. And then I also decided to read The Power of the Dog. Have either of you heard of that?
Vaguely.
Okay, so The Power of the Dog is a 1967 novel about a really toxic gay cowboy, to put it very lightly. So the film, in my opinion, the film came out with Benedict Cumberbatch and it won some awards and everything. It's actually quite good. And Kirsten Dunst, the woman from Spider-Man, Marie Antoinette, is another character in that, along with Jesse Plemons. I would like to call it a psychological thriller because this woman is basically being tormented by her gay brother-in-law to the point that she ends up having a nervous breakdown and descends into alcoholism. And then her brother-in-law, the evil gay cowboy or whatever, basically imprints upon her son that is his like step nephew or whatever, and decides to share his own stories of homoeroticism with this figure of male authority in his life. And then he gets, you know, the kid recognizes that the gay uncle is like, you know, mistreating his mom and driving her insane. So then he basically kills him with arsenic poisoning. So
Jesus.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of like gay literature about really fucked up men regarding conversations about like, you know, masculinity and everything. And Power of the Dog, really good. Fight Club, really suggest watching the movie if you're into that kind of thing. And I'm just gonna go right into movies. I'm gonna fucking bang this shit out. Watch The Substance, which I would love for GC and Cullen to watch with me, but GC can't do body horror.
I cannot. I'm a big baby and I get really queasy. I'm okay with sometimes I get a little cut on my finger and it won't stop bleeding and I go, hey, and then I die.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
GC's like, I need those feet protected, not destroyed.
I was gonna say something else, but I went with finger, but it wasn't. I did not get a cut on my finger. I got my cut somewhere else that I can't say, and it wouldn't stop bleeding, and I almost passed out in the shower.
Okay, I can imagine where it is, and I'm so sorry, GC. I'm so
His
sorry.
butthole.
It doesn't stop bleeding. They don't stop bleeding.
Yeah, I've heard about that. But The Substance is I would call it another psychological horror film. It's about this woman, Elizabeth Sparkle, who was like a fitness guru. She's in her 50s. She gets fired, and her whole world is turned upside down because it's basically a commentary about women's bodies and self-image and whatnot. And she ends up injecting herself with this thing called the Substance. And then a shinier, newer, younger version of herself crawls out of her spine.
Oh.
And basically takes her place as the fitness guru. And they're living...
Where do I get that?
You know, you just got to get the Substance. They'll reach out, Cullen. They'll reach out.
Hell of a cleanse.
Can we get sponsored by the Substance?
Yes, please.
Because, like, I really love to have, like, a younger, cooler version of myself. That just sounds like an infinite age glitch.
The issue is that younger, cooler version of yourself then begins to form a personality. And it's very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and both personalities become like opposed to each other and adversarial towards each other, which is super fucked up. The reason that this movie like really impacted me in terms of like the self-esteem issues is there's this I used to actually have a really hard time leaving the house if I didn't feel like I looked perfect, to the point that it was like some days I would like have like a fucking mental breakdown and I couldn't leave. There's a scene with Miss Elizabeth Sparkle where she realizes that her second self is having a more successful life, and there's even a billboard of her right outside of her window, that she decides to call somebody who really clearly like finds her attractive and is interested in her and wants to go on a date with her, and she gets ready. But she keeps going back to the mirror and looking at herself and reapplying her lipstick and eyeliner and everything. She gets to the door and sees her reflection in the doorknob, runs back to the bathroom, starts rubbing all of her makeup off, sits at the at the edge of her bed binge eating and ignores the text from the guy that she was about to go out with. And it's just like a really, really depressing scene on top of like all of this like it's just really good. It's super like it's not like the most subtle thing in the world, but it's a really good watch, but you got to be in the right place to watch it. It's kind of like Hereditary where like the cult stuff is really it is what it is, right? Like, oh god, there's like a headless corpse in my house. This little girl is possessed by Satan maybe. But the scariest thing is the idea of like inheriting like mental illness from your parent and not being able to like control that, or having a lack of control in your life and just sort of having that mental break. That's the terrifying thing about Hereditary to me. Not so much the cult shit. I love folk horror, but yeah, it's the horror in the mundane, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I made GC watch an episode of Wolf Hall with me. So
it was good. That guy seems very sad about everything.
Well,
wolves
yeah.
in these halls.
Yeah. Wolf Hall, I think I mentioned it on the podcast a little bit ago because I was reading the book, and now I ordered Bring Up the Bodies, which is the second in the trilogy. It's about Thomas Cromwell, who was advisor to King Henry VIII. And if you know history, you know how it goes. But yeah, he's a fucking wet dog of a man in that first episode. I asked GC if he liked political intrigue. He said yes,
do.
and then we started watching Wolf Hall. So
I want to watch, speaking of political intrigue,
yeah.
I want to watch the Phoenix Wright movie that the Takashi Miike made.
Oh my god, did we talk about... No, we did
Oh,
talk
yeah,
about
did we talk about the
Yakuza movie? Did we talk about that?
No,
we could talk
never
about
did.
it after you finish talking about all the other stuff you wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
No, I'm done. That's all I did was like read and watch TV shows.
We watched the Miike Yakuza movie, and the specific feeling I felt when that finished was, you know what? There can be good in this world after all. I thought, you know what? Maybe there is a reason to wake up day after day because something like this exists.
I hate to say it, it's the best video game adaptation I've ever seen.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yep.
And I think one of the reasons why they're able to do that, and I don't want to let GC take the reins because it was his idea, but like, and I think one of the ways it is able to achieve that quality is that it knows to like it doesn't try to waste time adapting the entire fucking thing. And it just kind of hopes you know enough about how it starts to go in. Like, I don't even think we see the scene where Kiryu like kills that one guy and then comes out of jail. He just shows up, right?
Yeah. It starts in media res.
And it never goes back.
Nope, it doesn't need to, because it kind of explains everything Kiryu's doing, and it explains that Kiryu is out of prison and that people have like grudges to settle with him. In fact, it opens with him being attacked by a bunch of people who have a score to settle with him for doing the things that he did. Haruka is already there. We don't have to get that scene where they meet or anything like that. They still reference it in the movie, because, you know, the movie takes a lot of creative liberties in a way that I really like, unlike the Amazon show. It's awesome. It is like, after watching the Amazon show and complaining that the cinematography fucking sucked, the fucking Miike movie was just like, it was euphoric.
The Majima scenes were crazy. The eye
Oh, it was
patch
so
fucking-
good.
Yeah.
It's time to get serious.
like cinematography was good from like a comedy perspective. Whenever they wanted to do comedy, like the shots were really funny. Like they knew to like, when Majima, like there's the scene you're talking about where Majima is like standing around the corner and like half of his face is there and he's like staring at Kiryu, but it's the side of his face that has the eye patch on. and he's like smiling at him. That shot is kind of pulled back so you can see his whole body to like emphasize the fact that like he's on the wrong fucking side of the wall. But then you get into like fight scenes, and fight scenes are like really good. Like they know when to cut for impact of like hitting somebody. They know when to hold on a shot. And then the choreography of that fight is actually really good. It's not a fucking shot where a bunch of people run at Kiryu and then he like very like, you know, wet fart, like dead fish style, like kind of waves his hand around or like puts them under his arms and then walks backwards into a fucking wall. Yeah, in the movie he does a fucking tiger drop.
He negates all damage.
And which negates all damage, as we know. Like fight choreography is really good. Like it's very classic. Like it's so like
it doesn't feel ashamed to be what it is, like the Amazon show.
Yeah, like
I don't want to. Sorry to interrupt you. I was just like the biggest takeaway I had and the biggest grin I had is the way Kiryu gets his second wind at the final battle is one of the best things I have ever seen. And it's like, oh yeah, you guys cared. You guys got it. You guys understood the assignment of adapting Yakuza.
Yes.
To do something like that.
And like they bothered to shoot it like in either they shot it on location. Well, they did shoot on location. They went to location, they shot on location, but also they went to like an actual like occupied area. And then the shots that are very clearly on a set, it's not a little tiny set with like a couple walls. It is a lot. It is a lot that has been designed to look like a very cramped space. And what works is that like the actual location that they're supposed to be getting across, like Champions District, it looks very cheap and dirty. And like, that's what that area would look like because the space is like this is like 2 feet wide and there's trash everywhere. And it's like, yes, this would be a very kind of grimy place to be in. And it's like, okay, perfect. They understood the locations they needed to shoot in. They go to Millennium Tower. Millennium Tower is a CG'd in tower, but it looks like a regular tower from like
better than the fucking Amazon
from like
show.
A fucking like an actual like skyline tower, like a decent skyscraper. It's not a fucking Kamen Rider villain's lair. References to the video game are sparing. So like the story is there obviously, right? But like they don't like make it obvious that it's like a video game, right? Like it's not like Kiryu beats up a bunch of dudes and then money falls out of them or he loots them or whatever, right? It's not like he gains experience points or you hear like references to the game in that way. There's little things like you can see like very sparingly you see like the heat flames in the movie. They do it sometimes. They do it at the finale, but they don't do it too much. It's just kind of like it's just like a little tiny thing of like, oh yeah, okay, he's in heat or whatever, right?
He's in heat, GC.
And the Kiryu in heat is tough to beat.
Like it's just these little things that don't call attention. They're not like tongue in cheek. It seems like it wants to take the source material seriously, and taking the source material seriously also happens to be adding comedy to the movie. And it's good. It's great. I love it.
They understood to get the crazy Ken Band songs from Yakuza 2 and Kiwami couldn't even do that. Mm-hmm. It might be one of my favorite pieces of Yakuza media that exists.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. I like the stage plays too. I'll try to find us some videos of the stage plays because the stage plays are really funny. But I just love the small details in that film. Like there's a fight in like an alley and then it cuts to it later on and like guys are cleaning it up because like,
they're cleaning up the alley.
The fucking Shimano family's just like fucked everything up really bad.
And there's also like a really good there's a lot of like emotional, like there's a strong emotional core to the film despite how it is so wacky. And when it does hit you with it, you really go like, oh fuck. Like there's a long running like side story going parallel to the main story, and it's actually really engaging. And in addition to like the emotional stuff, like it also gets the value of Haruka in the story, which the Amazon show does not. Like it just, I was having a really bad day when we were watching that, and I was like planning on like kind of like doing something else while we were watching, and I was like, oh fuck, no wait, I gotta lock in. This is really good.
Yeah, and they take liberties with characters. Like characters are not one-to-one from the game, right? Like I would say Majima is a little more over the top. Kiryu is a little more callous than he's sort of like. Well, actually, in Yakuza 1, he's pretty much like that. But like Date is a different kind of character entirely. Like Date is like comedy relief for the most part.
Fucking air conditioning breaking.
The air conditioning breaking. Like there's like their purpose in the story is still the same. And overall, like you still get the sense that it's like, oh yes, those are those characters. Like that's still Kiryu, that's still Majima, that's still Haruka and Date. You see Nishiki for all of 10 minutes in that movie, and you still like they still make the effort to be like, yes, that's him. Like we're gonna get him right. Like as correct as they could possibly do with 10 minutes. They also don't, the movie does not end the same way the games do. The movie goes in a slightly different direction, and like it wraps up like the many subplots that the movie has, which is another great thing. The movie also understands that Yakuza is like a big appeal of Yakuza happens to be sub stories and like the side stuff that occurs, because the appeal of the series, especially the first two games, wasn't necessarily just the story you were experiencing. It was the fact that the world felt very lived in and that people like existed outside of the characters in the main scenario. And so the movie follows 3 separate plots: a plot of 2 young adults who are on like a whim decide that they're gonna like rob like a bunch of stores to make a bunch of money for reasons that we don't know until later in the movie, right? That has a beginning, middle, and end conclusion. There is a plot line of 2 bank robbers who are trying to rob a bank that has no money in it, and now they have a bunch of hostages and they don't know what to do. That's a subplot. And then you have the police department that is trying to capture those bank robbers, and they are struggling to do so. And then the air conditioning breaks in the building they're holed up in. And both the robbers and the cops are getting more frustrated that they have to sit there in this hostage situation. That also has a beginning, middle, and end.
It's so creative. Like all of the stuff it does, it's like it is both Yakuza and it gets Yakuza, but it's also like it's very clear that everyone involved had their own fun, unique ideas. Mm-hmm. And like when it does deviate, it's like, okay, how can we do this in a way that services our story and is also just interesting and fun to watch? Like the whole like the idea that like the bank robbers with the broken air conditioning, and at one point like one of their demands is they get like food for everyone in there, but they make sure to make the police pay for the real expensive stuff.
Yeah, and then the hostages, while they're eating, turn to the bank robbers and go, "Hey, thanks for asking for the expensive stuff. We really appreciate it."
No, we got you. Don't worry.
And it's just like,
and the police are getting mad that they just wasted money on this.
It's like, and those are side quests. Those are literally sub stories from the, like, they're not 1-to-1 from the games, but like they are in the spirit of sub stories from the first 2 Yakuza games. And it's actually really endearing. It's really good. It achieves what the games do with the world building and the establishing of like where they are and what Kamurocho is. It's awesome.
I that was my first Mike movie and I loved it.
He did I think my friends recommend Ichi the Killer is one of the movies he's directed.
It's fine.
Yeah. Like, and that's the thing, right? Like I don't want people to like go watch this movie and think it's going to be like the greatest thing ever. Like it is a fun movie. It is a good movie. It understands like what it's adapting and stuff like that. It's not like the greatest movie ever made.
No.
But it kind of reminds me of like when movies used to be really good. Like it has like a nostalgia element to it that is weird for me because I don't have that nostalgia attached to it. And it also kind of like coming off of that fucking Amazon show, it just reminds me that it's possible for this series, for this franchise to like be compelling and be interesting and fun.
Hey, GC, you should do a video on the 2 different live action Yakuza things.
I don't want to get copyright striked.
That is true. Never mind.
Yeah. I wish I could do it.
Good idea, though.
In a better world. Yeah, it's a great idea. In a better world, I could do it without fear of that happening.
So if you end up watching Ichi the Killer, you should absolutely watch Dead or Alive. It's not based on the games or anything, but it has Riki Takeuchi in it and the actor for Kuze as well. It's really, really hard to find, but if you can find it, I would suggest watching it. He also did Audition, which makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
You know what Audition is?
No.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Is that something we're going to have to watch?
You can't watch it. Well, I'll tell you to look away. How about that?
Is it body horror in an action movie?
So Rob Zombie said this movie fucked him up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because, like, I've seen Reservoir Dogs, and the body horror in Reservoir Dogs doesn't bother me.
It's basically about women in Japan. I think it's it's not a necessary watch, but I think it's a pretty good watch.
Okay.
Basically, the film synopsis is this. The film follows a middle-aged widower who enlists the help of his film producer friend to stage a fake audition in order to meet a new girlfriend, only to find that the dark past of the woman he chooses severely affects their relationship.
Okay. That sounds mysterious.
It's a classic for a reason.
Do you know who else is in Dead or Alive?
Who else?
The man who plays Majima's handler in Yakuza 0.
Oh, yeah. I feel like they watched someone liked Dead or Alive.
And was like, let's hire all those people.
Yeah, all of them are here. Every single person.
Understandable.
Yes. Yeah, Dead or Alive is kind of crazy. It's supernatural. So, it's a supernatural Yakuza film.
That's interesting.
Yeah. There is sexual violence in that, though, so just be warned.
I'll be okay.
Okay. For anyone listening, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's important. I mean, honestly,
yeah.
I might just watch all his entire filmography. The whole thing.
Be
careful. Then you also have to play like No More Heroes 2, where he just like shows up, the guy.
Oh. Yeah, just know that he does make horror movies. Some pretty big ones.
I'll skip those.
Yeah, One Missed Call isn't so bad, but if we watch Audition, we have to watch it together. So I can be like, GC, look away now, okay? And then that's what it'll be. Yeah,
that won't work because you'll say look away, and then my brain will be like, surely it's got to be over by now. And I'll be like, is it over? Then I'll look and I'll be like, ah! And then I'll barf everywhere or pass out.
Well, the body horror is it's schlocky, like it's not well done. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, but it's kind of like, damn, okay, So.
Okay.
Just ask Jess. I think Jess has probably seen Audition.
Shout out to our friend Jess.
Yeah.
Hey, Jess. You're great.
Yeah. We watched more stuff, but I honestly don't know how much there is to really yap about.
Gundam Thunderbolt restored my faith in Gundam.
I don't have enough to talk about with Thunderbolt besides the fact that it was really good. But GC and I just put it on for us last Friday. It was kind of just like, I just watched this Gundam thing. And my thoughts were, I was immediately filled with regret because GC was having too much of a good time. And I was like, this just can't do. We need to find worse Gundam media immediately.
Gundam Thunderbolt understands one thing about the world of Gundam. Everything sucks. Everything sucks. The people perpetuating war are bad.
Mm-hmm.
The people that suffer the most are the ones doing the war for them.
It's a very it's the smartest way you could handle a conflict where it's like, where there is trouble to be had from both sides. And it's because they never bother going to the politics of the higher ups and the people running all this shit. You are on the ground level of both sides the entire time. And it's just a rough fucking situation.
There is a scene where somebody literally goes, hey, so-and-so he's the kind of guy who wants to be good at what he does. And the harsh reality is that this is what he's doing. And it's like, in a better world, this guy would not be doing this. He would be, I don't know, a race car driver or some kind of athlete or something, right? But he's in war and he wants to survive. In order to survive, he has to be good at what he does. As it turns out, he excels at anything he does. And so, in order to survive, he has sort of created a persona that treats the battlefield as a competition. And he is losing his humanity as a result, but he is doing so, and he has done so in order to essentially survive, maintain his sanity, maintain like a semblance of like who he was. Meanwhile, the other character we follow on the other side of the war is a man who actually has a lot of empathy, who actually cares about people, who has not lost himself or dehumanized himself mentally or emotionally, but over the course of the two movies that we watched, he becomes less of himself human in a different way, and he becomes
like physically.
Yes. And the people that he works for and the people that he does war for essentially treat and turn him into a literal tool. And you get to see the process. It's not like, the character shows up and like, oh, did you know that, 5 years ago, these people did this thing and it was really fucked up. Don't you feel bad for this character? No, they just show you that it happens. They show you how it happens. They show you the thing. And like in his mind, because he like, a lot of it has to do with like, without going into it too much, this is really early in the movie. He loses his legs. He lost his legs before the events of the movie, right? And one of the things that he fantasizes about is walking on the beach again. He has like a desire to feel the sand on the beach or to walk again or whatever, right? When he's in his mobile suit and he's doing his mobile suit thing and he's controlling, he's in a special mobile suit that uses the nerves in his like appendages to move. So it's like a 1-to-1 motion with himself. And when he does that, okay, he is reliving the days when he could walk, a thing that he desperately wants to be able to do again. So he starts, this is a fucked up experiment, but over time he starts to need to be in the mobile suit. He starts to be sort of like our other character. He grows, he becomes like obsessed
dependent on it
with this thing, and he becomes dependent on it. And the only way he can be happy now is to do the thing that is literally taking everything away from him.
And a nice little like fun way it understands both sides of this conflict is that like that guy is on the Zeon side, and you are seeing how far Zeon was willing to go. Just as you were able to see on the Federation side how far the Federation was willing to go. And it's like, it understands how bad both sides of this conflict was without ever going like, yeah, but like, oh, it doesn't do the unicorn thing where it's like, oh, but this, maybe that had some good points. No, because it is like,
it's a tragedy.
It is a tragedy, and it is showing you the people affected by this war the most. And it's the people who had to fucking fight the battles.
Yeah. It's great. Mm-hmm. It is what I wanted from Gundam, which is it's a tragedy. It is a classic Greek tragedy. Like, it is, nobody here is having a good time. You are watching the decline of civilization. You are watching the collapse of everything that makes people people. You are watching what war does to the people who have to carry out orders. And I love it. I ate that shit up. I was like, this is, everything about this is awful. I love it. And like you know what I mean? Like
the grim way.
This whole situation just fucking sucks. And I was like, yes, the captain is she's a fucking drug addict because she's like fucking succumbing to the stress of being in command, and it fucking sucks.
And she's like telling people, like she's sending people to their deaths, and she can't take it.
The fucking Earth Federation introduces children, and our fucking psychopath main character on the Earth Federation side, who clearly still has like his humanity, but like is trying to like is doing the thing that he does to survive and like not go crazy and not succumb to the things that everyone else around him is succumbing to. He gets pissed off about it, but when he goes to talk to the kids, he talks to them like equals, and he calls them his fellow expendables. And he doesn't mince the fucking words. And then it cuts to this fucking battle scene where all the fucking child soldiers are in their mobile suits and people start getting shot at, and all these fucking 14-year-olds are going, what do we do? What's going on? And they're like freaking out. And it's like, this is so horrifying. It's so good.
Yeah. And then like later on, people are like, oh, it's that guy who like used all those child soldiers as shields. And it's like, the fuck is he supposed to say about that? Like, obviously he didn't want that, but like, it's not like he can, like, it still happened. Like, there's so many like layers of complexity in this shitty situation. And it's just an interesting watch.
All to the sounds of free jazz.
Oh, and the jazz.
Wait,
There is
jazz?
Kazuma, both movies are scored with a jazz soundtrack, and it is purposefully dissonant and sometimes diegetic.
Oftentimes diegetic, at least in the first one, it's like all diegetic because because on the Federation side, the main character of that part is like, he's just big into jazz. And on the Xeon side, I think his genre of choice is like, I don't know how to call it, like doo-wop or whatever.
It's like doo-wop music. It's like sock hop music. Like,
yeah, it's like 50s, like, ooh, she's my baby.
She's my baby.
Shoo up. And like, and on the other side, you like in the second movie, you get to see the jazz band like equivalent of a sex scene.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Where two characters are fucking going crazy with like on jazz with each other, and they're like, you know, like a person is introduced in the second movie who is basically able to match EO's freak, and they have a jazz session together, and I'm pulling at my my collar, and I'm like, oh my god, like get a fucking room, you two, Jesus.
It is so good. It is so fucking good. I might buy the manga because the manga is almost I asked a friend about it and she said that they're almost done. So that's almost complete.
I think in the same year they said they were almost done. Apparently this said like, we got like 5 more years in us.
Jesus Christ.
So who knows? But like, yeah, no, and the manga like has kept going, and I guess they haven't had enough stuff in the manga to make a third movie. But like, when they do, I'll be there.
I loved it. I loved it. We watched a lot of good things, and I'm very happy.
Me too.
Oh, I also discovered Jamiroquai this
Oh,
week.
that's right.
Oh, you sure did.
Yeah, this is gonna be kind of crazy to people. I actually I didn't know that I had ever listened to a Jamiroquai song before. I listened to Canned Heart, obviously, because everybody saw Napoleon Dynamite or whatever. But it was because of that Yakuza silly meme, right? That I remembered that you said, is that supposed to be Jamiroquai? For some reason, that got recommended to me on my YouTube feed. I watched it and I was like, what is this parodying? And then I ended up watching the video for Virtual Insanity. And then I learned too much about that music video and that song. The fact that Jamiroquai wrote that because he saw an underground mall in Japan and was so flabbergasted by it that he thought society would never recover from the idea of an underground mall. That's the reason behind Virtual Insanity. The lyrics are about like the streets were empty, but everyone was underground. It was insane. Yeah, Jamiroquai's really good. You know what? Not overrated at all. All of his songs are good.
It's great.
Yeah, Cullen and I handshaking over Jamiroquai.
Yep.
A truce has
Finally,
been made. Yeah.
Understanding.
Yeah. So you know what, Cullen? You were right about Jamiroquai. I'll give you that.
I'm read about many things. Cowers away before you can retaliate.
I know. What is it? Me raising the steel chair? But no, yeah, Jamiroquai was awesome. And now I listen to Jamiroquai while I level up characters in World of Warcraft, and I feel good and not sad. And I wish that they still play Jamiroquai at the clubs. So, you know.
I think the theme of this episode is
bully Cullen, but also understand he is capable of good taste.
No. I was gonna say that life is difficult, but we persist, and sometimes media can be pretty good.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's the
unless
episode.
It's called Death Note.
Yeah.
Yeah, rally with me, people, against Death Note. Let's not talk about Code Geass over again.
I mean,
boo, Death Note.
So not to circle back to Death Note, but as you were having that conversation, just remember that like I had already finished the manga before it has been translated into English, and I was like, I don't really know if this is all that good, and everyone was losing their shit over it, and I was like, I don't know, and then I just never watched the anime. I only watched the openings, and that was it.
Oh, the openings are bad. Also,
wait, you don't like Maximum the Hormone?
Meh.
Okay, whatever. I mean, it's fair.
I rewatch the openings and see if like I fuck with it at all. They were just okay. But like more importantly, that show looks like ass.
Does it?
Death Note?
The Death Note show, like after the first couple episodes and outside of like a couple stills where they don't have to animate much, just looks bad.
Oh, I thought that final scene with L fucking floundering around like he slipped on a banana peel in the finale.
No, that's like fine. But like I'm saying like go back and look how like it's drawn. Characters are always off model in like really noticeable ways. And knowing that they had to wrap shit up so fast, you really get the idea that they like the production of that show is probably like absolute dog shit.
Oh man.
And they were crunching the entire time. I didn't want to keep noticing it, but I was like, damn, the show keeps looking worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything good but Death Note.
Yeah. I'm going to keep, I bought a bunch of fucking Blu-rays on a discotheque sale. And in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to watch Tenchi Muyo.
Oh yeah, that one's it's of its time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a vibe though. That's the thing. I'm like, I wanted to talk more about Dragon Ball, but like, fuck it. We've been going on too long, and I can save that for next time. Have you watched the Cooler
movie yet?
No.
We should watch the Cooler movie together.
Maybe we'll do that tonight. Like I was saying, after this, I have to go watch some stuff with some friends.
Yeah.
But if you guys are still up, I'm cool to watch the Cooler movie tonight. We watched the Broly movie, and I was like repulsed but interested by all of the soundtrack changes.
It's crazy. Don't worry, they're gonna play the fucking Deftones in the Cooler movie. So
that's the thing. I definitely need. Like, I want to see the Deftones movie with y'all tonight. Yes. But just like stay up late for me, please.
Yes. Also,
please.
GC, can you please put these memes on fucking Blue Sky?
I will.
All right. And that's that, everybody. Also, we do have a Blue Sky now at Burnout Culture. So please follow us on Blue Sky. Cullen's going to try to do something cheeky this week. I don't know what it is.
Oh, no, I was just saying, GC, you do more work, GC. Do more work.
Yeah. So thanks again, everybody, for listening to these 18 episodes. We've definitely hit the point, I think, in the podcast where we're not in danger of it like imploding. That's usually like what is like the first 6 episodes or something.
And all we need to do is never talk about Code Geass ever again, and I think we'll be okay.
Exactly. I already know what the cover is going to be for this episode. I hope you enjoy it.
I slam my mallet down and I say, banned.
Yeah, but thank you, listeners, as well, for sticking with us this long and enjoying the podcast and chatting in the Discord. It's actually really cool to think that we've been doing this for so long and you guys are still listening and still wanting to vibe. So thank you.
And we're going to keep doing it because God knows the world needs a bit of joy.
And yapping.
And we need the joy as much as you all need it. And we're going to yap and we're all going to just keep going.
Yep. All right.
Yep.
Thanks for hanging out, everybody.
Bye.
And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Ba-do-do. Ba-do-do-do. Ba-do-do-do. Ba-do-do-do.